Now, what I've mentioned a couple of times, this story features in a couple of your newspapers. It seems extraordinary. Thousands of drivers are allowed to keep their licences even though they've accrued enough penalty points to merit a disqualification. Figures from a Freedom of Information request show there are 8,632 drivers with at least 12 points. The road safety charity Break said this is appalling. They were not banned. Police leaders said the laws should be changed to stop drivers being granted exemptions in courts. Now, for those of you who are not aware, points are put on a licence when drivers are convicted for an offence, such as typically speeding, which I understand can earn you between 3 to 6 points, drink driving 3 to 11 points. And under the totting up system, most drivers are disqualified for at least 6 months if they get 12 or more points within a 3-year period. So is this a loophole? Let's bring into the conversation Nick Freeman, who's author, commentator, broadcaster, criminal defence lawyer at Freeman and Company, a solicitors firm, specialising in this area and often referred to in newspapers as Mr. Loophole. OK, Nick Freeman, how are they, quotes, getting away with it? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. They're not getting away with it. What Parliament intended when it invoked this legislation was to give the most deserving cases one more chance. So typically you have a salesman who's travelling 50,000 miles a year, and over a 3-year period, particularly with all the cameras on the road, it's very easy to accumulate 12 points. And what the government said is that if the consequences of a period of disqualification would lead to exceptional hardship, then that would give the court a discretion whether or not to disqualify. So once you get to that threshold of 12 points, if there is, on the balance of probabilities, exceptional hardship either to the defendant or anybody else who will be affected by that disqualification, often children, family members, etc., then the court has a discretion and it can decide, yes, we will still disqualify for the 6 months or longer, or actually we will reduce the disqualification, or we won't disqualify at all. And that's entirely a matter for the court. And I believe that that is entirely right and proper. The difficulty is this.
Hello?
It's clumsy legislation, and what's happening is people get to 11 points and they then commit a plethora of offences, and they go to court and they say there is exceptional hardship, and the courts are persuaded that there still is exceptional hardship and they're not disqualified. And in my view, that's wrong. They should have one more chance. And if there are several offences, they can only argue it for one offence, and that's it. So the legislation does need looking at. But I think in principle, allowing people to continue driving one more time, if the consequences are so dire, so serious, that to me makes complete sense. We don't want to be forcing people who are working, supporting the economy, keeping families and life going. We don't want to force them off the road. I'm not trivialising speeding, and there may be for other offences as well, but quite typically they're for people who marginally exceed the speed limit once too often during a 3-year period. And I don't think we should be strangling those people and depriving them of their livelihoods, particularly if the consequences are so serious. And I should add, loss of job by itself does not mean exceptional hardship. That the threshold is very, very high.
There are 8,632 drivers with 12 points. How high can it be if there's more than 8,000 who might have qualified through this?
I'm not sure. Is it 8,000 or 6,000?
8,632 is the number I've got from the Times newspaper, driving with at least 12 points.
Yeah. Well, how many million people are on our roads driving, trying to drive to earn a living?
What have you known qualify? For instance, I've got no way for collecting the children from school. Would that qualify someone?
Absolutely. As I say, Nick, the threshold is incredibly high. Okay. Magistrates are trained very thoroughly in this. Often cases are dealt with by judges. And the vast majority of cases, when the argument is propounded, are rejected because often disqualification causes hardship, but it has to reach that threshold of exceptional hardship. And of course, you can only argue it once in a 3-year period. So whilst 8,000 sounds a lot, if you look at that, it's a tiny, tiny percentage of the overall number of drivers on our roads. And the alternative is, well, yes, we take those people. And typically those people are people who are supporting the economy.
Always good speaking with you, Nick. Thank you. We'll leave it there. Nick Freeman, author, commentator, broadcaster, a well-known criminal defence lawyer. The firm Freeman is the solicitor firm specialising in motoring law, and he's known in the newspapers, of course, all the time as Mr. Loophole. If you've tried